On closed session items for the public. Being none, then we'll adjourn to closed session.
Good talk to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. I want to say that we have 6 board members present, 1 is absent, and we have our student representatives, Ms. Del Prado from Bear Creek High School, welcome, and Lucas Goulart from Lodi High School, welcome. Let's rise to the pledge. Salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Report on closed session items. Ms. McFarland motion, Ms. Alexander second, and the board rejected claim 630795 by the following vote of 6-0, 1 absent. Another anticipated litigation, Mr. Stroll motion, Dr. Ball second, the board reject claim 630103 by the following vote of 6-1, 1 absent. That concludes my report on closed session. All right, we have a recognition. Ms. Church, I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Young, President Nava, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to tonight bring forth the Classified Employee of the Year. So with that, I'm going to welcome the principal who has the privilege of supervising this amazing employee of ours, Michelle Brown from John Muir.
I saw her. And good evening, I'm Michelle Brown from John Muir Elementary. And when I got the email that said you need to choose someone who could be the Classified Employee of the Year, that really takes a little bit of thought. Because we know we have excellent employees, but what makes someone the Classified Person of the Year? And so I've only been there 2 years. And when I started there, Shasta Khan, who's somewhere out there, who could come up if she would like. I used to do this to my students too. They'd have to come up and stand in front of me while I talked about them. So a couple years ago when I was getting to know the staff, whenever I would say something about, she's the para in the RSP program, I'd say, oh man, what are we gonna do? Oh, ask Shasta. Shasta does it. She knows how to do that. She knows how to schedule. She knows how to do the curriculum. She knows how to do everything. I thought, wow, that's Shasta. And you know what? They're right. She could do everything. And when I think of someone who can be the Classified of the Year, I think of someone who knows how to do their job, who is kind to the students, who cares, and she's all of that. And so it was no problem to say Shasta Khan is John Muir's Employee of the Year, but for sure Lodi Unified Classified Employee of the Year. Thank you, Shasta.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Brown, for recommending me, and all of those that chose me to be Employee of the Year because working among so many hardworking classified staff and being chosen as Employee of the Year is truly amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Khan, for your hard work on the special ed department at Muir. Everything is appreciated, I know, and I know how difficult that job is to keep abreast of all the things that happen, especially in special education. Thank you. All right, we have our report from student representatives. We'll start out with Ms. Del Prado from Bear Creek High School.
Good afternoon, President Nava, members of the board, Superintendent Young. This is quite a lengthy report, so bear with me. Link Cruise Winter Formal is upon us. The theme is Under the Northern Lights. Ticket sales are every day during both lunches and after school. The dance is on December 9th. It's Girls Ask Guys. Winterfest Spirit Week is December 4th through 9th. The Spirit Days are Pajama Day, Lumberjack Day, Snowed In, Ugly Sweater Day, and on Friday, freshmen will dress as elves, sophomores as snowmen, juniors as penguins, and seniors as reindeer. Our conflict mediation class crafted teacher appreciation goodie bags, which were handed out today for teachers. Student government is hard at work for Winterfest Rally. The theme is Welcome to Whoville. Our blood drive is December 14th. Next week, members of Student Gov will be going into English classrooms to present why you should donate. ASB will be holding a candy cane gram fundraiser in later December, so students may purchase a candy cane along with a personalized note to give to their friends. Winterfest court nominations will take place November 27th through December 1st by Bear Creek staff. Student voting will be December 4th through 8th. The winners will be announced December 8th at our varsity boys basketball first home game. Bear Creek is having our annual Bruin Night Monday, December 11th. As for our sports, winter sports have begun. Boys varsity basketball won against Lodi High at their first game of the year, 68-62. I'm very proud to report this was Bear Creek's first basketball win against Lodi in 8 years. Girls soccer is scheduled to have their first game on November 29th. Which I am a team manager for, so you guys should come out to the games. Boys soccer's first game is November 28th at Lakeston Hughes. Our College and Career Center has been busy at work holding presentations for students from California as well as out-of-state colleges, along with hosting financial aid information workshops and providing FAFSA login assistance in preparation for the opening of the financial aid application. San Joaquin County of Education hosted students at the Youth in Government Day in partnership with the San Joaquin Board of Supervisors on October 26th. This was an opportunity for youth to experience what it is like to work for San Joaquin County. Students Tristan Silva, Sophia Ochoa, Nathan Lowe, Nick Normina, and Mackenzie Hicks had the opportunity to attend and participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, sir.
Alrighty, pleasure as always to be here. Good evening, President Nava, members of the board, Superintendent Young. So student government is currently beginning plans for senior grad night trip fundraising events to make the experience affordable for our seniors. Additionally, we're also prepping for some basketball games. We're putting together many fun themes for our student section. I'd like to congratulate 8 of our athletes that just signed letters of intent to compete at the collegiate level. For baseball, we have Brent Godina, who committed to UC Riverside, Vance Haskins, Fresno State. For cheer, Abigail Kalitsky and Madison Silva committed to Menlo College. Water polo, Morgan Weiss committed to Cal Baptist, and Emily Engel committed to Azusa Pacific. And for cross-country/track, we had Kaya Aiken at UC Davis and Zoe Aiken for Chico State. Girls volleyball and both of our water polo teams competed in playoffs this year, while some of our cross-country runners competed in sections. And girls golf also placed 5th in the Masters tournament. As for Lodi Speech and Debate at the UOP Invitational, Kiara Vivanco Cortez placed second and was a finalist in the Novice Extemporaneous and Open Impromptu. Rebecca Laban placed second in both novice speaking events, original oratory, and impromptu. Jocelyn Avila and Kiara Vivanco Cortez advanced to the semifinals in open public forum debate and earned a bid to the Tournament of Champions in Kentucky. Recently at Lodi, we celebrated 281 of our students on campus at the Academic Block L ceremony, celebrating their academic achievements. These students all earned a 3.8 GPA or higher for both semesters last school year. I'd also like to recognize some of our veterans on campus that we celebrated recently. Mr. Kyle Shawcross, Lieutenant U.S. Navy, Active Reserve. Mr. Christopher Galindo, U.S. Navy, USS Carl Vinson, CVN 70. Mrs. Darlene Corona, Specialist E4, U.S. Army. And Mr. Vincent Jerpy, E4 Corporal, U.S. Marines. In preparation for Thanksgiving, the Connections Committee recently put on a festive Thanksgiving event for our students at both lunches. And lastly, winter sports are heating up as basketball, soccer, wrestling, and competitive cheer are looking to light it up in their competitions this year. We let Bear Creek have one this year, but I promise you the Flames will be back. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Bear Creek. I like the things that are happening, you know, for the classes. That's such an important thing because it creates a lot of good things. They take pride in dressing like this and that and the other, and each class, of course, wants to win. Is there competition on that?
Yes, at every rally we have games and competitions. Last rally we had musical chairs.
Awesome, very good. And my God, Lucas, you have quite a few athletes that signed up for letters of intent. That's a great thing to know because if we added all that money up, we'd come out with a lot as far as being helped for being an athlete and getting scholarships in that regards. Thank you very much for your report. It's too bad you don't play Bear Creek again, huh? That's too bad. Maybe next year. Okay. Thank you for your reports and very good. Let's go with the comments from the superintendent.
Mr. Nava, members of the board. At a previous board meeting, John Muir Elementary invited me to join them at the Veterans Day celebration that they had at John Muir, which I was able to attend. It was a wonderful event, and I must say the students are amazing. Their singing was spot on. They were amazing singers, and it was great to participate. I guess I stood in the back because my voice was not as good as theirs. But it was a great celebration honoring our veterans, and I was thankful for the invitation to be able to be a part of that. Second, I would like to share that later this evening, not far from now, a long-range planning report will be shared. And part of that report is a slide referring to a plan to build an elementary school on the Gantner property and then shifting Vinewood students to that school. Please be aware that recommendation will be changing. Instead, staff will recommend that Vinewood School remain status quo. It will remain open. And we will return with a recommendation to look at the Gantner property to address the new subdivisions to the west of Lower Sacramento Road. During the report, Leonard will be able to answer any of your questions. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. That report came out, but there will be adjustments as far as the Gantner property and how we will be addressing students who would be attending the Gantner property. And with that, I have nothing further to share.
Thank you, Mr. Young, for your report. We have comments from the public. A 20-minute time period has been set aside for the public to address the board on items not listed on the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit his or her comments to 3 minutes. The board cannot engage in dialogue about public comments because of the restrictions placed by the California Brown Act. I have 9 cards, and as you know, we're allowed 20 minutes. If you keep your speeches short, maybe we can get through all 9, maybe not. Our first speaker will be William Yates.
Thank you, President Nava. Superintendent Young, happy Thanksgiving, and to you and yours, and especially to those who this Thanksgiving might be your first one without a family member. This will be my first Thanksgiving without my mother. I'm a teacher, and I wanted to say thank you to the Special Education Department and their support, my principal and her support, fellow teachers, my CSEA staff that was working with me, and all their support for me and my family. And I'm just thankful that you are taking this leadership time out of your lives to provide for this district. And Superintendent Young, I'm thankful for your leadership and for your hard work as a superintendent and for your vision for this district of full staffing. I think full staffing is vital, especially in our special education department, where we have many absences right now, not fully staffed. And part of that problem is we're highly competitive. We know as special education teachers we can go to any district, but right now we don't have a contract that is highly competitive with the surrounding districts. And with the last negotiation, it seemed like there was a department that's ready to win this negotiation, but not achieve the goal we've set out for the district, which is full staffing. We have to have a great contract. We could save a ton of money, and we could keep our contract low, but we will miss out on the superintendent's goal of full staffing. It is vital that we really negotiate, that we really get a competitive contract that works for all teachers, and then we address our CSEA staff and give them a great contract too, so that we can compete. The problem of 2023 is not whether we're going to enter a recession. The problem of 2023 is a lack of staff. Please, good contract.
Miss Bratcher, I think it's Rebecca, is it? I can't read you.
Sorry.
What is it now?
It's Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Young. Why should I stay as a special education teacher with Lodi Unified? I want to talk about the SDC classroom and how the district's poor planning has created unreasonable demands on the special education teachers in our classrooms. When I was hired with Lodi Unified, I was told the most students I would have in my classroom is 14. I have never had 14 or less until this year. This is my 8th year with Lodi Unified. Next year, if I have all the 5th and 6th grade SDC students at my school, projected numbers will be 22 students. How am I supposed to provide individualized special education services for each one of my students? The district's lack of effort to recruit and retain special education teachers is placing a heavier workload on the special education teachers you already have. Many new prospect teachers are being told to avoid Lodi Unified for the jobs due to low pay and high workloads. The refusal to discuss special education requests during negotiations is showing the district's practices are failing to provide individualized education for our special education students. One of the requests that was refused to be discussed at the bargaining table was the actual class size caps in SDC classrooms instead of vague terms of appropriate student to adult ratios. Another request was for more release days for our SDC teachers to meet the demands of larger caseloads and increased lengths of our legally bound IEP paperwork, which we currently do not have the time to do in our teaching day. For me to make a highly qualified, legally defensive triannual IEP takes about 25 hours from start to finish of non-instructional time. The year I had 17 students total, I had 9 triannuals in 1 year. That's 225 hours of paperwork outside of instructional time. 3 release days equals 24 hours. That means I did 201 hours of paperwork on my own time. One more thing we ask for is getting a time card for a certain amount of hours above hours of meetings per week that we do above and beyond our contracted hours. The refusal to be discussed. That was refused to be discussed. So once again, I ask you, why should I stay as a special education teacher in Lodi Unified?
Mike Daly.
Good evening, Mr. Young, Mr. Nava, members of the board. This is my first time before you. I teach special ed at Ansel Adams Elementary. I'm going to start by naming off a few of their school districts. Escalon, Houston, Riverbank, Oakdale, Salida, Delhi. The school districts I just named are much smaller, yet I would be making more on their salary schedules. The teachers in these school districts are paid higher salaries in towns with smaller populations. This tells me that these school districts don't want to lose their seasoned teachers, and they want to attract new teachers fresh out of credential programs. In other words, they value their teachers. In the 11 years I've been in this district, I have seen many teachers leave for one reason: lack of adequate compensation. And I'm not just talking about teachers who are in the early years of their careers. I'm also talking about teachers who have 10 or more years of experience. Qualified, seasoned teachers who are tired of waiting for a fair contract. In other words, why put up with this if I don't have to? They leave knowing they will have to earn tenure all over again, but to them it's worth it. This is an ongoing problem. More teachers are going to leave this year, next year, and so forth until the teachers feel they are treated fairly and the district negotiates faithfully. Due to the state of the economy today, teachers fresh out of credential programs are going to target districts where the compensation is better, which means not too many newly credentialed teachers will come to Lodi. This will result in more open teaching positions each year, most of whom will eventually be filled with interns, long-term substitutes, and rotating substitutes. How are students going to get a good education with unqualified people in the classroom? This is what the future holds in this district until this district does the right thing and pays the teachers a salary commensurate to the surrounding districts. The quality of education the students receive is what's at stake here. Sure, I and the rest of the teachers deserve better for ourselves and our families, but long term it's the students who will be shortchanged. The subsidy received from the government needs to be invested to attract and retain highly qualified teachers who have the necessary skills to teach their students. I'm going to close with a quotation from a well-known journalist that I've always liked and admired. For the life of me, I cannot fathom why we expect so much from teachers and provide them so little in return. Bill Moyers. Thank you.
King.
President Nava, members of the board, and Superintendent Young. I'll be very brief. I've been teaching math for over 30 years, and I do my best to give over 100% every day. I hear all the time, oh, I'm not good at math, so I always try to make it easier for my students. So I made a visual to help you with the math today as well. This circle graph represents the COLA that the state gave to Lodi Unified, and you can see that Lodi Unified is taking almost half of it, about 40%, and they're offering us about 62%. Those are the numbers. So I don't understand why Lodi Unified is only offering us 62% when so many teachers give over 100%. Please bargain in good faith and give the COLA that the state intended to go to teachers, to the teachers.
Karen Jackson.
Good evening, Mr. Young, President Nava, and members of the board. My name is Karen Jackson, and I have been a special education teacher here in Lodi since 2001. I work at Orchard School with 5th and 6th grade students in a mild to moderate special day class setting. I want to start by sharing kudos for Mallory Tekela, RSP teacher, for creating a monthly newsletter, you have copies of them, for families and staff that highlights things happening in our special education classrooms and with our RSP students. She also shares resources for families that pertain to support for their children. We have a strong special education team at Orchard, and Mallory has increased communication and sense of community through her monthly newsletters. I also want to share that my concern for students across the district mirror the concerns of others who have spoken. One thing that keeps running through my mind is hearing people who speak in public comments state frustration with they aren't hearing us in regards to what's been shared. And in hearing you, the school board, state the same frustration with they don't stay to listen to us till the end of the meeting. And I ponder how it is that we got to this point, this us versus them. I don't have an easy answer on how to fix this, but I know that it starts with acknowledging the fact that we are all here for the students and that their best interest is in each of our hearts. I know that each of you became a school board member because you care deeply for the well-being of students. Mr. Young, I know that you have dedicated your career to education because you care deeply for students. We need to start with that common ground and move forward in unity to solve these shared concerns. I also want to speak to a phrase that I've heard several times, and that is the phrase, respect is earned. Words matter. This phrase implies that one is not automatically granted respect, yet we as professionals and as role models for the students for whom we share responsibility should have respect for one another as human beings. I think that these 2 points are related, this use of us versus them language and the message that respect is earned and not given. It is through working together that we can affect positive change. Lastly, I want to thank the families in our special education classes at Orchard for coming out and celebrating our Family Fun Day activities. In September, family members and staff made ice cream sundaes with students. In October, we made caramel apples, and in November, we frosted and decorated cookies. Grateful shout out to Ruby's Bakery for donating their delicious cookies for this event. Family and community involvement makes a positive impact on a successful school community, and I am proud to be part of the Orchard family. I extend to each of you a warm welcome to our school board, and to Mr. Young to attend one of our family events during the 2nd semester. I promise that you will leave with your hearts and your tummies full. Abraham Lincoln stated, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Let us take these words to heart and refuse to be a house divided, but instead stand strong together for our students. Thank you.
Michelle.
Hard to follow Miss Jackson. I like that, respect is earned. So that means that hello school board members and my favorite teacher of all time, Miss Alexander. Respect is earned. So, folks, my name is Daniel Tekela. My wife is the one that did the Tekela Talks. She's a very passionate teacher, mainly because we have 3 kids in the district, 2 of which have autism. When they were diagnosed with autism, the biggest thing that we learned was consistency. Having a routine for our kids has made life simpler, and they've been able to succeed a lot more. Consistency is Julie McDonald, a retired teacher, Miss Campbell, Miss Jackson, who have helped be a part of the village to help raise our kids. Unfortunately, being a parent, a taxpayer, a Lodi citizen, someone involved and someone who cares, that's where the consistency seems to have fallen apart in Lodi Unified. I went kindergarten through 12th grade here. I was probably Miss Alexander's favorite student. But the one thing my parents have always taught me is to talk when it needs to be said and speak from your heart. With over 30 special education positions needing to be filled, the consistency is not there. With teachers being able to drive 15 minutes that way, or a little bit that way and over to different ones and make significantly more, the consistency is not there. Come January 1st, this is a scary fact, a burger flipper can make $27,300 a year working 35 hours a week, but with benefits
a Lodi teacher makes $26,200. My wife's in school in the credentialing program. She finished her bachelor's in education in 2.5 years during the pandemic while being a paraeducator. And now it's at the point where, why? The consistency's not there. You guys gotta do something. You gotta do something. Andrew Robinson couldn't be here tonight, so I chatted with him earlier, told him I was going to mention his name, so he was here. But damn it, guys, do something about it. Pay the teachers. We're paying the taxes. Lodi has the money. The district has the money. You have the money. You make good money. Sorry about that. Ganter Property School, how are we going to have a school there with no teachers if you're not going to get them? It can't all be interns. It can't be underqualified to what we need for our kids. It's hard to be a parent in this district when I don't feel like anyone's supported. It's hard to be a spouse of a special education teacher, a sibling of 2 teachers, a kid of 2 special education teachers, who all get taken care of as teachers, got taken care of as teachers. Oh, I got you. Please do something. If not, go flip some burgers. Do some shit.
Hello, President Nava, school board members, and I still on call Neil, and Superintendent Young. I'm not going to speak about the money situation. I'm not going to speak about a well-deserved problem with our SDC teachers. I want to talk about, I've been hearing from a lot of young teachers about problems that they've been having about moving across the salary schedule. When I started out 34 years ago, I went through across the salary schedule in 3 years because I understand math, and Ann did not teach me, but I do understand math. And so I went to conferences, I went to trainings, I went to all these different things, submitted ahead of time everything properly, and personnel would approve it, and I got credit for all this learning that I was doing on my own. What I understand from young teachers now is that almost everything has to be a university or college credential only, and they don't get to take all these other fascinating things. I went to conferences at UC Berkeley for a weekend and learned things that have helped me in my 6th grade career. Some of them maybe a little obscure, and I kind of had to play it to get it approved. But I'd like to see if we could just go work with Leah, work with personnel, and see if we could develop a better system for our new teachers so that they can get across the salary schedule sooner, quicker, and it would be something nice. We've been very contentious with each other, and it would just be nice to each other. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Kamei Braden.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Young, and all the board members. Sorry. So thank you for letting me speak this evening, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my fellow paraeducators. I'm a paraeducator. I'm with the preschool program, and I'd just like to say that with you guys, with being divided, with not having all of our classified employees looked at to be moved up in the steps on the pay scale, it divides us. We have paraeducators with the state and Head Start preschool that are upset because they don't understand why they aren't included in the process of being moved up on the pay scale, especially when they do so much as well with their programs, just like we do. And we're definitely short-staffed. Head Start, I've heard many state and Head Start preschool paras say that they're extremely short-staffed as well. So I'm not sure why they wouldn't be included with that increase in staff. I mean, we're all short-staffed. We all know that. I mean, we have people leaving. Today we were 5 paras short Were there any subs? No, there weren't any subs. We don't have, I mean, everybody says we all know there's not enough teachers. There's not enough subs to even cover for that. And for our SDC preschool classrooms, do you guys know who teaches when there's a sub in there? It's us. It's the parents. We teach the students when there's a sub in there because they don't know what our schedule is throughout the day. They don't know what we do. So we have to, they're basically a body in the classroom and we're teaching the students. And we're stepped on, kind of like getting kicked all the time. We feel like we're getting kicked all the time and we're losing a lot of parents at their districts because it seems like the other districts are showing that they care about their employees. They care about their teachers. They care about their CSCA employees as well. So I would just implore you to please try to, work with us a little bit better, work with us in good faith. And also, it'd be nice to have a week off for Thanksgiving. You know how many students we have missing today? This whole week. So I don't know if you can work that out into the calendar or something, but I'm sure everybody would like to have the whole week off for Thanksgiving week. And thank you, and I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
We care about you.
Good evening, Mr. Young, President Nava, members of the board. I'm the ASB president and a student from the new kid on the block, McNair High School. I just would like to say that I'm extremely disappointed with how the district responded to McNair's concerns regarding grad night. At the last board meeting, I sat there pleading for help us to plan alternatives or workarounds. The superintendent, Mr. Young, which I have the utmost respect for, said that he was proud to see the interest in representing my school and speaking about the challenges we face around Disneyland. The superintendent promised me that the district would help us and talk to us, and that our area director, Mr. Dawson, would be able to answer all of our questions and provide support, which he did plan a meeting with McNair last Thursday, which I was absent from due to sickness. But from what I heard, he did answer all of our questions. However, there was no support lended out to McNair. I'm so disappointed with the district's response, and it's also the fact that I had a board member walk up to me after the last board meeting and straight up tell me that grad night is something that I should not look forward to simply because it's boring and not all that. I expected greater support, but simply did not receive it. There were a few members who expressed their support to me, and I'm so grateful for them, and I promise I will work with you to make sure McNair is not lost. I feel that the class of 2024 has suffered so many losses and that this trip just marks another blow at the class. The first of many losses we faced was due to COVID, but the district could not control that. No one could have seen that everyone would go into lockdown and lose on so much. But for this, the district has full control over this situation and can provide us support. But so far, nothing meaningful. It hurts me to know that this new directive is not only affecting the lives of high schoolers, but it is also affecting the elementary and middle schools. I learned that no one can go on trips that are celebratory. I thought that our school district invested in and celebrated its students. If our district really cared about our students the way they say they do, I personally feel they would invest in the social emotional learning factor of our academic endeavor. Thank you for your time, and before I sign off, I'd like to say that I'm extremely thankful to be a part of this amazing district where it's possible for all of us to work together to make great things happen. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
That concludes our public comments. We have moved the report from Long Range Facility Development Planning Draft Report to now. So I will give the floor to Mr. Khan.
Thank you, President Nava, members of the board, Superintendent Young. If I may, I'd like to welcome Julian Watt and Mariano Lavezzo from the LPA architect firm. Julian is the principal architect and one of the board's architects of record on our projects. I'm sure the board has looked through all 74 slides and memorized every word, but I would initially like to point out slide 7. This team has been working for the better part of 10 months. We haven't always made it easy on them. We've canceled meetings, their site meetings have had to be rescheduled due to conflicts at the sites, and yet they've rolled through. As Superintendent Young mentioned, this is still a work in progress. This is just a report. Board is not approving anything tonight. One major change that you will see on the 12th when this returns is the Vinewood campus will remain status quo. It will not move, or the program will not move to Gantner. The superintendent is, however, concerned about growth on the west side of Lodi proper and also the south side adjacent to the Larson School. And obviously, if those areas of town increase in housing, then that will put a lot of impact both on our Larson School and our Vinewood School. So after this meeting, after this board meeting, we have an early morning meeting with this team, and we'll explain the new path forward to investigate Gantner, but it won't include closing the program at Vinewood. Without further ado, Julian and Mariana, welcome.
Thank you very much. We'll start it on the first slide. There we go. So we put together an agenda. There has been a lot of work since January, so we try to make it as succinct as possible. Really just going through what the process was, what groups we met with, a little quick overview of the schedule of where we've been, what the stakeholder various group priorities were, and the work that we're doing on the project prioritization, which is in progress. We're wrapping that up the week after Thanksgiving. And then just a little bit about Site I and the Gantner site. And as it's been mentioned, the Gantner site is just a feasibility study. The Vinewood site will remain status quo. It won't be closed, as shown in the slide 55. So go to the next slide. Next slide. So I think most of you know this is an update to the work that we did in 2016. So we call it a refresh. Next slide. And after that work, there was an implementation plan. So this work that we're doing does not include an implementation plan. So I just want to be clear that project prioritization is simply to take that first step to start to think about what would be prioritized when you get to the implementation plan and show what was documented from those groups for prioritization. So when we come back on the 12th, it's just board adoption of a plan, not board adoption of an implementation to do a specific set of projects in a specific order. Next slide. So these are all the groups that we were involved with. We had a facility development committee. We worked with the district leadership meeting every week, and we started with working with your educational leadership to update the ed specs, which is a component of the master plan. It's simply, that's the California Department of Ed lingo for design guidelines. So those design guidelines will be used by your future architecture and engineering teams when projects come out of this long-range plan. We also did some community outreach with some community forums for Site I and Gantner. And we went to every campus and did campus visioning workshops where the site admin did a great job of inviting a group of stakeholders to give input. Next slide. So this is where we've been. I won't read all this to you, but where we are now is we're wrapping up the project prioritization and plugging that into a Power BI dashboard that will be a great tool that will plug everything that came up to the top, the highest number of votes for the projects, but it's a tool that you can use then in the implementation because it does allow you to plug in different dates of when you would do the projects, and it will factor in the construction escalation for that year. So it's a great tool that the district can use in the implementation phase. So we are on track for submitting the package on time to get the board adoption on December 12th. Next slide. So when we kicked off in January, this is just a summary of when we asked what what would make this a success. It was really saying we need to go to each campus and review the 2018 wish list of projects and see what's relevant, what is still valid and what isn't, as well as including the site I feasibility study. And then we agreed project prioritization would be very important. That's where the rubber hits the road. There's always going to be a lot more need than the budget would allow. So we have to make some tough decisions of what is going to have the most impact for learners. We agreed that there already are some funds, and we just want to make sure before we keep moving, the district keeps moving forward, that we're using those funds where it will have the most impact. So a lot of the projects aren't relying on a future funding strategy. The other big focus was that there are early childhood centers and regional hubs for special ed programs of low incidence. So those would be a high priority to figure out where's the best place for those programs to be and how they would fit on the site. And then replacing portables, everyone could agree, was very important to all the different stakeholders. Next slide. So this is just a list of all the early childhood education centers. So this was provided to us, and we simply did test fits on these sites after we met with Susan Peterson and her team to understand what the plan was for which populations. We also met with the directors of special education to understand what would be specific needs on these campuses that would be regional hubs for special education. Next slide. So in the appendix that we provided, I won't go through 74 slides, I think it's 40 something, but in the appendix it shows you if you want to dig a little deeper on the demographics. But basically this is just explaining that there's a moderately declining, the population is moderately declining in the conservative projection, but it's stable in the moderate. So in the conservative, it contracts just slightly slower rates than the state average, and in the moderate, it shrinks about 1.5%. So this isn't a lot. It doesn't have a big impact. It's not like a huge change in population, but it is declining. Next slide. And then these are just some visuals that are showing the population demographics without factoring in the things that the demographics aren't going to show you that you're planning, that the district is planning to do, like having early childhood education centers and regional hubs. That's shifting students to where they need to be. So this doesn't include that. It's just showing the visual from the demographics for the forecast. Next slide. So just to summarize the process, we began with meeting with educators, doing 6 focus groups, which I'll show you the topics in a little bit. And then we went to each campus, and that was really the heart of this. So the last time in 2016, there were town halls, and it was a lot broader. This time we were doing an update, so we wanted to be a bit more laser-like in our what we were drawing out for input and really just find out what's still valid and what isn't from the proposed plans from 2016. So we took those plans and we updated them to show what currently is existing, and we showed them their old 2016 long-range plans, and we asked those a series of about 11 questions per campus to guide them through the workshop. We took notes on the drawings. I'll show you just some excerpts from a campus visioning workshop report. They're quite comprehensive. And then after we took in the input, revised the diagram for 2023, then we met with them again with the site admin to look at those drawings and see if they had any more comments. And at that point, we asked them if they would tell us what were their top 3 things, if they could wave a magic wand, what would be the 3 most important projects that would have the most impact on the learners. So that's all documented in the deliverable and used in the project prioritization process. We also did a community and student survey, which I'll go over the details of what resulted from that. And just to keep in mind, there are 275 portables in the district. And so we found great alignment between the educators, the school site stakeholders, and the district leadership that it is important to replace portables with permanent construction. Next slide. So these are the 6 focus group topics that your educational leadership thought were important to update the ed specs from 2016. And we linked them all to various LCAP goals. So supporting students with special needs, social emotional learning and well-being, early childhood and outdoor learning, the dining experience and child nutrition services, STEM, and community connections and career tech education. Next slide. So just a few pages from a report. Each campus got one of these campus visioning reports so we could make sure if when we went back to meet with them several months later and show them the final diagram, this was the basis of the planning of those diagrams. Next slide. So we showed the proposed diagram with the key takeaways annotated. Next slide. So as many pages as we needed to show those key takeaways. Next slide. And then we put everything on a mural. It's an app that anyone can join without buying the software. And so that was in your package, this link that showed you all 46 campuses. So you could see the proposed 2023 diagram, the scope of work categories, and under the school's logo, it showed the top 3 priorities that group of site stakeholders said would be the most important. Next slide. So to recap on those priorities, next slide. Another form of engagement was just simply an online survey. We had 2,926 total responses from the students. Next slide. And then we had 1,476 from the community. Next slide. So the reason we did this survey is to find out what the community really values. And so we looked at things where we could see the highest percentage of agreement. And so we saw 87% or higher on all these things. I won't read them to you, but a lot of it had to do with health and wellness and planning for the future and hands-on learning. Next slide. So a simple one is 70% of the participants feel physically safe on their campus and they enjoy using the outdoors. And another one they could all agree on is that the schools do need updating and modernizing, repair and maintenance to support future-ready learning, and that the schools should be a role model for environmental stewardship. Next slide. And 60% feel emotionally safe on the campus, feel the facilities in general are in good shape, schools doing a good job of protecting the environment, and they have received help on how to plan for the future. Next slide. So asking the community what they felt is most valuable, the top 3 had to do with planning for the future, career tech education, college prep resources, and dual enrollment programs. Slide. Community was also asked just about the physical environment. What are the most important things? So size of classrooms, having modern fluid technology, and flexibility of learning spaces. Next slide. So on that mural, you could see for every campus, we summarized the conclusion after we had shown the campus their proposed diagram. What are the top 3 priorities for your campus? And we asked when people engaged, the community engaged in the project prioritization exercise, workshop, and then when the facility development committee engaged to think about this, because that's the crux of the work that we did, was going back to every campus and revisiting the 2016 plan and seeing what's still valid and what isn't. So so that was included in the process. Next slide. So for school site committee priorities, we saw a pattern where they all really wanted classroom new construction because that relates to replacing portables with new construction. Library and student support services were very important, and safety, security, and campus control. Campus control includes pickup, drop-off, and parking. Next slide. I think this slide is a repeat. Next slide. So the pattern overall, district-wide, was everyone wants new construction, classroom new construction, library, media center, and student support services, so related to counseling and anything related to helping students. And then the safety, security, and campus control. The only difference is middle school had a big emphasis on improving the physical education environments, and high school had, in addition to that, needs for electives, which includes career tech education, and then improving administration and staff support. Next slide. So next slide, project prioritization, and we just broke it down, and so scope of work categories is the first thing we had to explain to the community. Next slide. So there's 17 scope of work categories. This just helps anybody understand when they see a cost estimate, how is it organized? So it's just organized into all these different categories. I won't read them all, but basically starting from modernization, reconfiguration means relocating walls, perhaps structural moves more costly than modernization. Existing building systems and toilets includes all infrastructure, site relating to thermal comfort. Also site utilities, things like sewer and other infrastructure. Go to the next slide. So performing arts, multi-purpose rooms, PE improvements, admin and staff support, library and student support, safety, security, and campus control. Then district support facilities, outdoor learning, exterior play spaces, play fields and hard courts, next generation classroom flexibility, and technology, infrastructure, and equipment. So that is only infrastructure, that's not things like laptops and equipment like that. Next slide. Next slide. So the total project cost is shown for every campus, and that is a list of needs. So that's before project prioritization. If we were to do every single project that everyone feels is necessary, these are the totals for every campus. Elementary schools on this slide. Next slide. So it shows you have a lot of elementary schools, so it's 1,724,000,000. Middle schools, all the totals are there, so that adds up to 323,478,000. Keep in mind all these prices, all these costs have to be inflated because it is based on a conceptual site diagram, so that when you go and do a project, you have enough budget to do the project. If it wasn't conservative, then you would start the project and right out of the gate you would find you need to start cutting. So you don't want to be in that position. So just, I know that might be sticker shock looking at the costs, but that's how they're done for long-range planning. So you have the high school total, and then you have the alternative school total. So it does add up to 2.8 billion. We're reworking a few little things we caught where we had been counting something that's already being funded, so we're cleaning that up. So it might be a little bit lower.
If I may add as well, so the board recalls a 2016 study. LPA had the same team estimating the prices on this report that estimated the prices on 2016. On the 2016 study, I believe the total number was 1.3 billion. The board's scheduled 280 million due to the maximum amount of bonds that were available to sell in the Measure U program. And we should get full value of the priority or the implementation plan that the board adopted under Resolution 2018-08. So this is a good team that's put these numbers together. They've done it for you before, and they were pretty accurate in terms of the total costing.
Thank you. Next slide. So here you have the cost estimate by scope of work. In the appendix, we put it by school. So it just shows you, if you look at those 17 scopes, where the needs are, like what the totals are for those needs. Next slide. So this is a strategy for funding. It could be a potential bond of $250 million. There are developer fees secured for Site I. Measure U funds are not counted in our cost estimate, and the Measure L funds remaining are $50 million.
And slight correction, the developer fees were initially presented to the board as a potential funding source for Gantner, not Site I. The Measure L has been presented as potential funding for Site I.
Right, thank you for that. I see we have that in the fine print. Site I funded by Measure L. So the total funding available could be $329 million. And so we back out 2/3 of that. We reserve 1/3 for contingencies and things like interim housing and cost escalation when we do this rough calculation. So when we did our project priority exercise, we said the budget you have is really only $220,430,000. So people were asked to choose projects, and then we aggregated the votes, and phase 1 would be the $220 million, and anything else that got a high number of votes but didn't fit in the $220 million is phase 2, adding up to $329 million, and then we cut off anything else that came in that didn't fit in the $329 million. So that's how the exercise is basically done for project prioritization, just to give you a start before you go into an implementation phase after adopting the plan. Next slide. Next slide. So we invited the community to also participate in articulating what they thought would be most important. It's a lot to do in one evening for 46 campuses. So we created a Survey Monkey survey that gave them folks that joined via Zoom a way to look at the existing plan, the new plan, everything that people in the room were looking at on posters on the wall. And they could do the voting and just choose the top 3 scopes for each campus. So the results of that are in the appendix. Next slide. So we've been working with the steering committee in the last week and this week as well. They got together in a room and we put it up on the screen, and they knew at the district level that the hubs for special education and the early childhood centers are very important. So they went through and they plugged in numbers on all the campuses where those projects are going to happen first. Then we took that back to the studio and we aggregated it, and it added up to $157,716,000. So they still had some more to spend. So in the last week, they each worked independently. Some of them worked in teams of 2, and they cast their votes to look at it through other lenses besides those 2 lenses, like where do we have growth, which campuses didn't get projects from the last measure, so giving those campuses that have a high amount of need some more attention, and they finished casting their votes. So we just finished aggregating that this morning, and you'll see that in the package that we submit for the board adoption of where we landed on the project prioritization. And the Power BI dashboard will also be included in that package. It'll look static, but it really is a tool that the district can use to work through the implementation phase. Next slide. So that's a sample of what that Power BI mock-up that we're developing looks like. The vertical bars show the school types. So the feeders, the elementary schools for each of the 4 feeders, and then the middle schools, the high schools, and the alternative schools. And along the bottom, the column is, the columns are all the different scopes for those schools. We also added to the dashboard, knowing how important it seemed to everybody to remove portables, keeping track of how many portables are being removed when all these different scopes are chosen. Next slide. So just very quickly on Site I, next slide. This is the location in the West Lakes part of Stockton. Next slide. So that's the location there on Regatta and Westlake. Next slide. And this is just a simple site analysis of the acreage that we have and the surrounding context, the arc of the sun and the wind, and where we need a buffer from the levee. Next slide. And so for this one, our team was tasked with coming up with the test fit for 3 different scenarios: a K-8 program for 900 students, a shared elementary and middle school program for 1,200 students, and a separate elementary and middle school on the same site, also for 1,200 students. So no decision has been made. This is simply a feasibility study that you can use when it is time to make a decision to decide what type of school you would like to do on the site. Next slide. So this is just showing the 3D model of each one of those scenarios, just to get a visual of what that would look like on the site, showing where the parking is and all the shared resources. Next slide. So this is showing if you had a shared elementary and middle school campus where everything is separate. Next slide. And this is showing they're not shared, but they operate independently on the same site for elementary and middle school. Next slide. So the last part to wrap this up is Gantner. So next slide, again, that Vinewood is not moving to Gantner. The site is smaller than Site I. It's 12 acres, and there are $29 million in anticipated developer fees for that site. Next slide. So this is the location in Lodi. Next slide. Here you can see the acreage, and it's located next to a church and a high school. Next slide. In this case, we did not do 3 different scenarios. We just studied putting 1 school on the campus. So this is just showing general conceptual where the building should go, the play fields and the parking. Next slide. And so the program is we did it for 900 students, and that's just showing the maximum amount of students that you could fit on the site. It doesn't mean when it's planned that you need to plan for 900, but if you wanted to, you could. Next slide. So this just shows a visual of what it could look like, how it would work on the site, and how the parking and the drop-off would work. Next slide. And that's it. So the appendix was just for you to have, go as deep as you want before the meeting, but I wasn't planning on sharing any more of those slides. So we're ready for any questions or comments.
Well, if I may comment first, Mariana. First of all, thank you, Julian and Mariana and your whole team, for an immense amount of work. Anybody that looks at this can see that it's packed full of data. So we are going to bring back a revised report for approval to the board on December 12th. Apologies for some of the slides, but we're working again tomorrow on a lot of items in this report. For instance, the Gantner meeting with the Gantner site took place last Wednesday. And that was after the Tuesday afternoon cutoff for board submission. And while Superintendent Young and Ms. Armstrong are usually very generous with business up to Thursday. It was just decided there's a lot that we still need to discuss in the ensuing week, so we just left as is, and we'll bring back a revised report on the 12th. But Joanne, Mariana, myself are here to welcome any questions of the board.
Any questions from the board? Start out with Ms. Alexander.
I do. Thank you very much for that. I noticed from when I first looked at the agenda and went through the program that there's been some changes to the priorities of that. And you had said that the people were asked to choose. Is it the steering committee? Who made the changes on that?
So we did a separate activity with them, so they weren't changes. So the appendix documented what happened in the community meeting. We had 57 votes in the community meeting. We found a lot of the surveys were incomplete. It seemed like there was survey fatigue because the ones that were higher up in the alphabet got more, and then there was like less as they ran down to the end of the alphabet. So the reason we facilitate a separate workshop with the steering committee, so that's all the educational area service leaders, maintenance and operations, facilities team, directors of special education. So it's 11 people. Only 9 are voting, so Leonard is not voting and Vicki Brum is not voting, so 9 votes. And that's where we started with the things that we know are important at a district level, and that was the special education hubs and the early childhood centers. So we just focused on that and plugged in the numbers together on that as a whole group. Then we asked them, well, we ran out of time. We didn't have time to get to the 220 million. So please work independently, or if you want to team up with somebody, work together. And we gave them each their own spreadsheet that had plugged in all those numbers and asked them to choose things looking at it through the lens of, say, like the Stockton side that didn't get as many projects from the last measure, growth, removing portables, and finish casting their vote each. So now what we just finished aggregating this morning was those 9 votes.
So from Thursday till now, that's how that changed?
Yes.
Because I noticed the change in the dots, especially, I'm a huge advocate for schools that are older.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see modernization on any school that is newly built to take priority over any of our existing schools, I'm gonna just, I've said it before, I have a problem with that. And so that's something that I would like to have part of the discussion and something. And that's why I joined the facilities meeting. It's just, thank you. It was a great presentation. I went through it on Thursday and seeing it again, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Ms. McFarland?
Thank you, President Nava. A couple of questions I have, Leonard. One is, do we have portables off every campus site?
I'm sorry,
Still have portables on campus sites? I know
Yes,
we
ma'am.
do.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know the board has been very adamant about we want portables off and with Measure U money, and I know many campuses we have worked towards that. So my concern comes into, just like Ms. Alexander, when we're looking at the priority of money, if we still have campuses that we have not modernized and they're older, I'm concerned. I know we've had lots of talks about specific campuses without naming names. It's coming. And we're talking about moving this kind of money and these types of improvements. I'm all in, but I know what we haven't done with Measure U, and we've done a lot, and I know what campuses are out there hanging. And so I would hope that this, before we go too far into the future, that we have completed everything that we've discussed in the spring, last fall, and the year before. And some board members know what I'm referring to. And the newer schools, I agree. If we're doing a modernization on a newer school, do our older schools, have they had the facelift they need? Those are my concerns. I'm not saying don't move forward. I'm saying I want to make sure that we don't throw in the towel on a school, because then we're not just putting lipstick on a pig. I want to make sure that they're getting what they need.
I believe that the 2018-08 resolution is going to be finished. I believe the 2022-22 resolution will be done as well. although you'll start to see those board resolutions come to you in the next month or two for actual proceeding forward with the bills that we've discussed in previous board meetings. I'll remind the board that you're not directing us to build anything with this report. That will come with discussion of the implementation plan, and that's where the board sets its priorities based on community input from this exercise, and then also at the open mic, just like in the 2018-08 resolution. The board conducted a report and then an action item later so that everybody could see exactly what the board was going to put that $280 million into. So I envision a very similar process this go around as well.
And then my other concern is that we've got kind of, I call it the split district. We have some in Stockton and some in Lodi. And I just want to make sure that we're not focusing on either area, that whatever we're doing in the proper Lodi, we're doing in the proper country. Because a lot of my sites are in Area 1, and we're out in the middle where no one looks at us daily. So if we're making pretty inside the city's limits, I'm hoping that we're going out to the extended country schools, and we're giving equal to all. And that will be my sticking point when I look at this. But I do appreciate the work. I can't imagine every time there's a change asked, I'm apologizing ahead of time because I'm sure you're ready to kill some of us. Basically that, right?
That's my job.
That's your job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to
Thank you,
address
Ms. McCoy.
your concern about the portables, we will be including some analytical spreadsheets that came from the cost estimate where we just plugged in, what if we only choose projects that remove portables? And so as you know, that means new construction. So when we did it, that exercise yesterday, just plugging it into a spreadsheet without talking to anybody, it was like 649 million. Because it isn't just removing a portable, it's new construction and the work and the steps that need to happen before you can do that.
And if we have that many students on those campuses where we need those, I don't want it to affect our students, and because we're going to get rid of portables, that means we move students. And that displaces teachers, that displaces families, I could go on and on and on. So there's a human component in this.
Yes, yeah.
That's also been our history. We have only employed interim housing in one build, and that was Lodi High. We purposely steer away from it because it is like throwing money out a window. Yeah. So, and you're not an urban district. It's a wonderful thing. You have the ability on most of your campuses to build away from existing buildings and develop an undeveloped side of a school site, which saves you millions and millions of dollars on interim housing as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Stroll?
Thanks for the report. It was almost like I was seeing it through new eyes again, because a lot of stuff was kind of explained more fully to me. And just like the others, just keep things short and simple. It's like, I do think, because I had to teach in it for many, many years, the decaying portable buildings, they're not as good. Much more difficult to use to teach well. So I'll just keep it short, and thank you for doing this. I can't imagine it.
Thank you, Mr. Stroll. Mr. Canaxa?
Again, the same. Thank you for your work on this project. Just looking at it, it's overwhelming just to read it, much less do the work you guys have done. So appreciate it, and it's nice to have these options for us to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you, President Nava. Thank you again for the report. It was in detail. I do have a quick question. You brought us down to available projects funding at about $220 million. And on the bottom, they've written the development of Site I will be funded by Measure L. I was just curious, does that site not get developer fees? Like again,
That would be up to the board. Developer fees we're earning developer fees in West Lodi and also West Stockton. So however the board would like to divvy up that money, that's the board's discretion. We're basically referring to the board's Fund 25.
So just for clarification, the developer fee is not given by the builder of the homes to every school site in that locality that they're building?
They are given to the district centrally.
Central. Okay. That clarifies. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mall. My question is to Mimi Leonard. Are we including our board members that are in the facility committee included in some of these meetings?
We have not in these setup meetings, but we certainly will as we begin to move forward.
Okay.
Once the board gives us direction to proceed in this manner, then you really start refining the board's desire in terms of what will actually get built at some point, and at that point we will desperately need board input. This exercise was really was really an outreach to community and staff members at this point.
Yeah, the reason I'm saying this, Leonard, as I'm in the community, somebody questioned me on this movement of Elkhorn, Pinewood, and all these places, and I said, whoa, 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 where did you hear that? I had never heard it. So it got out somewhere, and I would appreciate if our board members would be involved because they would disseminate that information to the rest of the board that are not on that committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. What a job. It's a job. The main thing, and I've been in this board for umpteen years, is really project prioritization. You have that work in progress. And that's the most important thing. I think most of the board members will agree that the priorities of building the old, at one time I said, just get rid of that school and build a new one because it's probably cheaper, you know. But at the time it wasn't feasible to do that. But we do want to prioritize, and at one time, and I know one of our ex-board members is here, his main was getting rid of all portables. And we were in a work in progress on that, and by that time I thought maybe we were already almost finished with that. Mr. Khan, can you answer that?
We still have aged portables. We've removed 97 old portables and of course the finger buildings at Lodi High. There's still more work to do. I think the question that will arise for the board is at some point you've got portables that are maybe 10 years old that are left, and those are dollar good, and to just rip them out after investing all that money in them will be a consideration for the board. But obviously the target will be, and if you read in the report, portables over 20 years of age.
Yes.
So the old Tokay portables, what Lodi High used to call the village, I don't even know what we call those things that were on Needham sites.
Right.
I mean, all those are gone, and that will be an intention of, I'm sure, the board and the district to continue with that.
And this is where we get back to prioritizing these old people. Okay, very good. I have no other questions except thorough report, and I know that we'd like to see this report, and it will be on our next agenda.
Yes, sir.
As a priority to approve it and do all kinds of things that need to be done. I'm sure it's not gonna be all this report that you mentioned, because it's gotta be condensed somehow so we can get through it some way.
It'll still be big.
It'll be big, but I will understand it a lot better. Thank you for your explanation, going through all the pages. I went through all of it yesterday, day before, and all that when I got the agenda, and I'm telling you, it was work in progress there for me to do that. I said, my gosh. And what kind of surprised me is the money, of course. That's where we're gonna get $2 billion, you know. But it's a work in progress, and it's a 10-year project, so we have some time. Thank you again very much. Thank you, Leonard. Thanks for there. Appreciate that. I want to see if we have any public comments on this report.
Good evening, I'm Lori Salez, and I'm here in place of Lisa representing Leah tonight. And I just, something occurred to us as this report was going that we have declining enrollment, yet we're talking about new schools. And also, we have some schools that are heavily impacted, and then we have some schools that have declining enrollment. And have we considered moving attendance lines and moving boundaries, attendance boundaries, to help out the schools that are overcrowded and that are overflowing, because that's a problem in itself. And there's other schools that are declining and are collapsing classes even after the school year starts. So I know my neighborhood school, the neighborhood school, they collapsed a class and it made a teacher move, and students that were supposed to be in one class, then they were, juggled around. That's not good for students. So just a thought. And also, I didn't see where it really considered the rollout of TK. So we have more classes coming on for that. So just wondering about that as well. So, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Hi, actually, I have questions about that hub. So I currently am in the SDC preschool program, and they moved us all to Creekside because we are now a hub. So I was just wondering why that was put under a 2024-2025 school year when we're already there. And then there have also been issues. I'm just wondering about, as you're fixing up the schools and stuff like that, when we move to Creekside, it's not, we have a classroom that has to use an adult bathroom for preschool kids. And the staff still, the bathroom that they have to use is still used by staff and other people. So I'm just wondering, how does that make any sense? I mean, do you want to walk into a bathroom where a 3-year-old is trying to go to the bathroom, or would you like one of the 3-year-olds to walk in with a teacher or a parent to walk in as you're trying to use the bathroom? No, I don't think so. That's not right. And then for the classroom that I'm in, we're in a portable. In the portable, we have a bathroom, but we don't have, for the kids, but we don't have a sink or anywhere for us to actually clean toys. I mean, they're preschoolers, and they're special needs. So everything goes in their mouth. We need some place where we can actually clean these toys so they're not spreading their germs to all the other students that come into the classroom. And have you looked at these hubs? Because I can tell you it's been anything but great so far this year with this new system. And are you going to have the busing? We have kids, Creekside's on the other side of Stockton. When you have kids that live in the Murata area, how are they supposed to get to school? Sometimes parents don't have transportation. It's not feasible, but transportation is not being offered to those students, except for the ones that have been grandfathered in that were in the program last year and already had busing. So I'd really like you guys to look into this and really take a good look and see come talk to us, the people that actually work there, and see what we need, see what our concerns are. Because there's a lot of concerns, and I feel like the schools in Stockton aren't getting the repairs and stuff as the ones that get done. Those always seem to be the ones that get repaired first. Creekside's been around for a long time. It's an older school. It needs repairs done. But thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I was also just reading that whole report today when I was looking at the agenda.
Name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lana Gentry. I was just reading that whole program like you were talking about, Mr. Nava, and I was like, what the heck? And I don't know if anyone can answer me, but what is and where is Site I? Is that like a place or just something in the report?
It's in the West Lakes area of West Stockton. It's just down the street from me.
Okay, so that first thing.
All the way down Consumnes and West Lakes driveway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's south, just directly south of Manlio. So.
My name is Daniel Takella. So question, I saw the special education hubs for low incident. I've been involved in this a long time. Are we talking like low needs, low behaviors in regards to that? Am I reading that right? My concern is there's a lot of them that are looking really soon. I think that's the big priority. I'm not gonna beat over the same bush again, but we need to hire more teachers to have the ability to even do TK. Especially at that low level of an age group, we gotta have the teachers that know how to handle that. And then I do wanna thank Ms. McFarland, Ms. Alexander, Doctor as well for speaking up about we don't need to touch up new schools. There's so many new schools that are phenomenal. As someone who's been here since kindergarten, Lakewood Elementary looks exactly the same with gates. Lodi Middle School, I think, has gained like 7 portables since I left there in 2000. Tokay had, I think I counted in my head, there was like 18 when I was there, and I'm assuming there's probably still more. But I think that, especially with those campuses, just those alone, there's enough room that we could build, 2-side buildings with classrooms on each side and knock them out. I know Tokay High, by the old gymnasium to the southeast of the pool area, there was like 8 to 10 that could all be turned into double classrooms. But just appreciate that. I'd love to see what this could develop without having the facelift on the grade school, but get ones like Needham and stuff like that. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, let's move on with the agenda. We're going back to public comments on consent agenda A. Anybody from the public has any comments on consent agenda A? Not. Board members, we want to pull any items on consent agenda A. Mr. Khan.
Apologies, President Nava, members of the board, and Superintendent Young. I'd like to pull A5 again. I guarantee I'll bring it back on the 12th. We are still working through an issue on that.
Board members, you need to pull any items from consent agenda A? If not, I need a motion.
Motion to approve all consent agenda A less A5. And it was already taken off.
Okay, Ms. Move and second by, moved and second.
Second by Gary.
Mr. Connect said to approve the rest of consent agenda A. Board vote. Okay, motion carries 6-0-1 absent. We'll move on with the agenda. Consent agenda B, student discipline cases. Wishes of the board. Move to approve by Mr. Knacksack, second by Ms. McFarland to approve consent agenda B. Board vote since our students left. Studying. Motion carries 6-0-1 absent. Other action items, approval of primary logos for Beckman Elementary, Plaza Robles High School, and Ronald E. McNair High School. Mr. Young.
Yes, Mr. Nava, members of the board, I'm going to pass this along to Chelsea, who can guide you through this, but before you are 3 schools and their logos for your approval. If you have any questions or comments, we have people here as well who can answer those questions and provide any feedback that you need.
Any comments from the board on the logos? No comments from the board. Any comments from the public on the logos of the 3 schools? Sam?
Hi, I'm Joseph Gardia, the student from McNair, and so I would like to talk about McNair's new proposed logo. First off, I'm very happy that we're finally here at this stage after so long. I mean, we had some issues with the process being followed for McNair, and we discussed that, and we acknowledged that, and we went back, and we worked on those issues, and here we are with a new proposed logo. And I'm still a little displeased with our logo, but I'm happy that we finally have one. During the final few meetings that we had, it felt like the energy from everyone was like, oh man, let's just try and get this over with, especially from like the artist that we're contracting. There was very little energy from him and very little discussion from him. And I just feel personally that our new proposed logo that has been brought before you is boring and not necessarily unique, where years in the future will not have a meaningful impact on our school culture, which I have discussed here previously that McNair does not have a strong foundation of school culture. And it was also brought to my attention that one of our proposed logos that we were working with previously actually looked really similar to Bear Creek's current logo. And after looking into it, there are many new logos for our district sites that are sharing certain similarities. I asked, where is the creativity in this? Even during the McNair's process, there was little creativity put into this by the artist that the district is contracting. And there were times where he would use online templates to piece together our ideas. I would also like to know, too, how much money is this artist being contracted? And how much money would it cost for McNair to roll out this new logo for the entire school? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments from the public? I need a motion to entertain from the board, please.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Knacksack.
Second.
Second by Dr. Ball, on the logos of Beckman Elementary, Plaza Robles High School, and Ronald Lee McNair High School. Board vote, please. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Item OAI 2, proposed revision of board policy 6161, equipment, books, materials, and board policy 6170.1, transitional kindergarten. Dr. Sally.
Thank you, President Nava, members of the board. This is returning from the last meeting when we had this as a report, and is you seek your consideration for approval.
Any questions from the board? Questions from the audience? Any?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Young and members of the board. My name is Dr. Brownell, and I'm actually a kindergarten teacher at Beckman Elementary School. And in reading over your policy for TK, one of the things that popped out was that we can look at a program at least 3 hours and a program no more than 4 hours. How come we're not actually referencing the ed code in that policy with the number of annual minutes as dictated by the California Department of Education?
Dr. Sally?
I'm looking for the citations. We have lots of citations. I'm not sure why the minutes aren't cited. We did take this off CBA, and theirs didn't cite the minutes. You could add it if you would like to reconsider that. Or this is reflecting CBA policy as well. CSB.
Okay. And secondarily, I saw in there that it says that Mr. Young, or superintendent or designee, can determine to actually have a student enter prior to that September 1st date. Is there a rationale as to why we would want to have a younger student than a 4-year-old in our TK program versus going to one of our preschool type programs?
Dr. Selly?
Well, again, it's open in times when there are situations where we miss by a day or so, and so there's consideration for that. Not generally a policy that we would pursue.
Thirdly, related to that, how then does that help happen when that child has to transition to kindergarten as a student who then is technically potentially a year younger than their classmates?
There's potential for that at any time. Some students are more advanced or slower to develop than others, and we consider that on an individual basis.
Thank you.
So as a board or a school district, are we going to put into place a developmental scale to determine if our students are developmentally advanced and eligible for that, or is it just going to be someone with just making that decision?
Again, we're following CSBA guidelines. There's always considerations that may come up. We could reconsider the language, or we could move forward with the adopted recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? I have a comment.
So basically, you're saying it's somewhat open-ended, and it gives us opportunities to.
Well, there's just a little opportunity for some wiggle room, but again,
Okay.
we try to hold tight, but obviously there are some unique scenarios that we like to have a little.
Okay, all right. Sounds fine.
Question, Ms. McFarland?
Well, I'm just wondering if we're not referencing the education code, which is that a strategic move by us as a district, or does this give us more flexibility in that? Is this a better move for us not to reference that? I mean, we reference that on some policies, and then, I don't know if we need to be consistent on this, or this is.
Well, I'm not certain the ed code that is being called out.
It's right.
I'm looking, we have dozens of ed codes cited here. And again, we're following the CSBA guidelines. I'd have to be informed of what ed code we may be missing.
Mr. Nava,
Yes,
members of
Mr.
the
Young.
board, in reference to Dr. Brunel's questions, and certainly we as staff bring these as a report. The purpose of bringing it first as a report is to share that information publicly, get input from the public, and questions can be asked. I'm emailed from teachers, community members. Then it comes back for approval, the action item. It's difficult for staff in a board meeting to research and provide that information, discuss it potentially with legal counsel, look into the specific reasons that CSBA's attorneys that represent the school boards are trying to provide that information. So, great questions. It's helpful to know that information in advance of the board meeting where we're bringing it for action, which is why we bring it as a report, so that staff is not sitting here trying to research ed code, research the specific reason why that exists, what we've done in practice when someone is requesting to come in, TK a day before the date they're supposed to, things of that nature. So that's the challenge that staff has provided. But if you don't want to approve these and you want to table it till next meeting, we can bring it back and provide answers. But that's the challenge that we face, and that's why we bring them as a report first and then as an action item.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. We've already had that report item, so now it's an action item. Okay, need some action from the board.
Move to approve.
Move to approve, approved by Mr. Knacksack, second by Ms. McFarland to approve the item OA1-2. Board vote, please. Motion carries 5-1, 1 absent. We have Dr. Dorsey on credential. Credential application approval.
Good evening, President, all members of the board, Mr. Young. Before you is a request for a variable term waiver to fill one of our difficult to fill positions. This allows the individual a little bit more time to fulfill the requirements of their full credential.
Any questions from the board? Questions from the audience? Need a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. McFarland.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stroll to approve item AOI 3. Board vote, please. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Item OA 1-4, approval of the memorandum of understanding with California School Employees Association. Dr. Dosti.
Again, President, all members of the board, Mr. Young, before you, we have the memorandum of understanding regarding designated on-call employees for California School Employees Association. We're asking for your approval at this time.
Thank you. Any board comments? Comments from the audience?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Knacksack, second by Dr. Ball. Board vote, please. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. All right, we're at the end of this. We've already covered the long-range facilities, so we're going to communications. Comments from employee group representatives.
Good evening, Lori Celez. I'm representing Lodi Education tonight. Oh, okay, we're timed now for
5 minutes,
employees?
yes.
Okay. All right, that's new to me. So, first of all, I just wanted to follow up with Dr. Brownell. The ed code is 46207 and 47612.5. I really feel like that's something we should have researched, and if we didn't know, then table it and come back. I don't feel like just shoving it through was a great decision. So that is important, and as a teacher, and when somebody decides to put a student in my class or anybody's class before their actual birthday, that sometimes it's parent pressure, sometimes it's principal just decides, the kid wants it, so here we go. So I really think that when things like that are brought up, and I understand your point on that this was the action item and it was brought as a report, but keep in mind, we're teachers that work all day, and we're at school at 7 o'clock in the morning for the most part. So running down all the ed codes isn't something that we're doing on the regular, always. I mean, sometimes, but not all the time. So thank you for listening to her, and Mrs. Alexander, thank you for your support on that one. So first of all, I would like to thank the board members, Mrs. Alexander, Mr. Stroh, and Mr. Porter for attending our bargaining session yesterday. The district passed a proposal focused on monetary areas. Their monetary area didn't address the preschool teachers being moved on to the salary schedule or the improvement to maternity leave, which are impactful member issues. Furthermore, the LEA membership has expressed the importance of non-monetary issues, such as elimination of the break-in service clause that we currently have, no-tell days, transfer language, class size caps, and a partial use of our 5 before school year work days to complete Keenan videos. Monetarily, we've asked for a salary schedule increase of 10%. Since the COLA is 8.22, a 10% salary increase would provide the COLA, but a 1.78% raise to compensate for inflation rates and another increase that we are facing in our healthcare come January. And I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that we have an unrestricted reserve currently at $172 million. Additionally, we are also concerned about multiple nursing moms that we have who are struggling with adequate time and appropriate location for pumping. One recess is not typically adequate for a complete pumping session. This accommodation is really important and it's necessary for both the health of the moms as well as the nutrition of their child. So Leah is eager to work to resolve all issues and ratify a contract that meets needs in a timely manner. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the teachers who continue to support during this process. So thank you so much for your time and happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Young, President Nava. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Nothing really for me tonight. We do bargain again on December 6th, so I'm excited to hear that there were 3 board members in attendance in LEA, and I would love to have you in the room with us as well. And I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it. The difference with us is we don't have any language items. There's nothing to cloud the air. It's the words that were used the last time was the board hasn't come to a consensus. And if the board hasn't come to a consensus, then I'm not sure that we need to meet on December 6th, to be honest with you. So keep that in mind, and you guys have seen our proposals. Honestly, I don't think we're that far apart. I think once we get serious and get down to the meat of it, like I said from the beginning, I thought we could have this done quicker. So I'm optimistic and hopeful for the 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any other comments from employee representatives? Okay, then we'll go to board comments. We'll start out with Mr. Knaxon.
This actually is going to be somewhat directed to Mr. Khan. I've mentioned to you in the past that I had some inquiries about the use of some of the land, particularly the northeast section of side of Lodi High School campus, close to, I guess, the ag building. And one possibility using that land, I suppose, is to build a new theater, which I know Lodi High School desperately needs. Another is to expand the ag facility. I'm just kind of spitballing out. Has there been any contemplation about how we're going to use that land?
It's actually part of, there's a drawing in the big 74 page, so there's several scenarios that the board will be able to consider at some point in an implementation plan. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knaxon. Dr. Ball.
Thank you, President Nava. I appreciate this time that you give us to speak. I think it's really important. I appreciate everybody who came and spoke today. Thank you. I speak from my heart as I say this. Thank you for staying and listening. It means a lot. What I say is, what I see is that it's an earnest effort being made. There should be an open communication and an honest relay of information so everything seems, or at least, as I know it, and as I have understood in the last few months, transparent. Any doubts that come up, I think, should be clarified and not made a public mockery of each other. And I think this was a very, very productive meeting, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. I will ask Neil for a clarification on how often are the board policies revised. I know we've made a very earnest effort in the last few meetings to bring up the policies from 2004, 2006 that hadn't been looked at. How often can a board policy be revised?
Dr. Ball, members of the board, generally there's 2 types of updates. One is updating the board, letting them know that there's no changes in the law, and we can update it to update the date so the board's aware. So that can happen regularly. But generally speaking, we should be updating those board policies as laws change, and in the state of California, they seem to change often. So we should be doing this regularly. I know that COVID also had an impact on how often we were bringing board policies as well. But as the law changes, we should be returning to the board with those revisions. And that is why you're seeing many of those policies coming to you and will continue to come to you. Once we get all those up to date, they won't be coming as often, but the ones that are impacted by the law changes, we will return with those.
I appreciate that, thank you. And so if a policy like we did today, we passed it because we're following the procedures. It was brought in as a report, it's being passed in as an action item this time. Can this policy be brought back next year? Can someone bring it up and say, hey, this was adopted, it didn't work as intended, could we revise it?
Yeah, very simple answer is, they are the board's policies. And if the board wants to bring them back, or staff wants to bring them back because something may or may not be working, or we need to look into a matter that doesn't seem to be working as we intended, we can bring that back at any time, not because the law changes, but because how we're dealing with it as a district needs to be adjusted. So that is an ongoing process. I was speaking more in general to the fact that laws are constantly changing and updating, and we need to respond to that by updating the laws, the board policies that exist.
Well, thank you, that answers my question, and I hope it clarifies for everybody else too, that if it doesn't work what we adopted, we bring it back, we revise it, we look at it again.
Yeah, and the truth is, what Dr. Brunel brought up is something that school sites deal with all the time. Parents will bring kids in and say, my child's brilliant. And I know because I was a school site principal and they wanted to start someone in kindergarten, and that school had a full day kindergarten and they didn't meet the date, and so they're coming in and saying they're ready, or they came from a private school where they called that school's program a TK program or a preschool / TK program, and they will try to lobby to have their child. So the designee is really the school site principal, and the teachers generally sit down and they hold an SST to review the information, the requests from the parents, and determinations are made at different grade levels. So those things certainly happen. So I don't want to meet with a student who's not age eligible for TK and determine myself. It's really the school sites following a process, getting input before those decisions are made. That's a general practice of it. But we are certainly not in the business of wanting to start kids who are not age appropriate. But as far as the policy goes and why that is left open, there are situations where we may need to consider it because they have been in a private school, and academically and socially they are ready based on the school's review of the information and so forth, and they may make a determination as such. So this TK policy would match up with what we do in other areas as well. So certainly that's why it could be in there, and looking into why, like for example, do we not always cite the ed code in a board policy? Well, I mean, ed code is ed code. We don't get to disregard ed code. That doesn't necessarily mean in practice the policy is denoting it, whereas oftentimes in the footnotes we reference ed code specifically as to why this policy was generated the way it is based on CSBA's attorneys and recommendations. So those are all things to consider in this process.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Stroll?
Couple things, just real quick. I'd like to thank, I'm not sure where we first got the invitation, but to staff and LEA for letting us sit in on the negotiations. It was a learning experience for me, so I appreciate it. Real quick. And then also, just a little thing I got to do a few days ago was the North Elementary School area's spelling bee, and I got to go back to, I live right by the school, but also the school where I went to kindergarten, so I went back, and the stage seemed to have kind of shrunk in 60 years. And it was nice seeing retired principals and current principals there, and parents involved, and everybody cheering on the kids. And like I said, the stage looked a lot smaller, and like people of my generation know tomorrow's the 60th anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. And they always tell people my age or a little bit older where you remember where you were, and I was in the east of the 2 kindergarten rooms at Washington School when he was shot. I remember watching it on the TV there. I mean, there's a continuation of history, and I don't know if it was actually the day he was shot or the next day because it was on the news on the TV, and I don't know if we were watching the live thing at the time. But either way, within a day, November 22nd. So, but it was it's fun always for me to go back to Washington School and being invited there by Gina Lopez, the principal. Got to know him pretty well. So, anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Stroh. Thank you for the, that's kind of funny because I'm thinking about where I was, and I would probably be your teacher. but Ms. McFarland, please.
Thank you, President. Did you spell any words is what I want to know.
No, I didn't have to. My wife laughed at me. You're like, you, that's ironic.
Thank you. Today I got to spend some time in Elkhorn for Elkhorn School. They had their pumpkin pie social and their, what they call it, their Elkhorn Day floats. And Mr. Dawson was there. He actually had a piece of pie. I left a little too early. But the floats were amazing, and the camaraderie with the parents and students was fantastic with the teachers. So thank you, Mr. Harris and your staff and all the students. It was really enjoyable. One quick question, I don't know how much I can say. Mr. or Dr. Dosti, thank you for presenting all the information from the board to bargaining. I want to thank you for taking our wishes and moving them forward. I want to be very clear that you have spoke to all of us, and we are very clear about what your directions were. Can you confirm that for me?
As far as?
As far as our wishes going into bargaining.
So, the authorization that the board has provided for me during negotiations, we have conveyed to each and every collective bargaining association as far as what the board has provided for each individual group, as far as on schedule, as far as what can be offered in one-time funds, and any additional contractual language that has been shared. All that has been shared and direction has been provided by the board, and we have fully implemented that and offered that to each bargaining association.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because we get very confused when speakers talk about have we received information and have we given direction? And I'm very comfortable that we have given direction. I'm very comfortable that it has been conveyed with the responses we've gotten back. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Ms. Alexander?
First off, what a blast from the past. It always makes me feel old when I see students up at the microphone, and I appreciated Daniel's shout out and what he and his family do and help with the district. I love the newsletter. This is so very cool. I wanted to say yesterday being at the negotiations was nice to be sitting amongst people whose faces I appreciate and admire. What a daunting task for teachers to give up their days, especially on a Monday, for our team to be there and giving up their days on their campus as well. And I felt very refreshed that both Mike Heberly, Dr. Dosi, and Leah and our teams were very respectful to each other. I'm hopeful that we will continue on. Des, I'm planning on being there for CSEA. I've not sat in on one of those as well. I know, and I have to do a shout out for the fact that Mr. Porter's not here, but I'm still gonna shout it out because we talked about humans, and sometimes sitting up on the dais and stuff, we forget how we're all celebrating holidays. We're missing family members for the first time. That hit home a lot. And to hear that Mr. Porter was selected as one of 2 people in the state of California to be a ref for the championship water polo game, I want to give him a shout out. It's an honor for a human, not a board member, a human and a really good person. The one thing that struck me was that 60%, and I wrote this down, of our students don't feel, or only 60% of our students feel emotionally safe. And to me that coming from middle school, that's a D. And so I would like to encourage us all to continue to work in that avenue as well. And I hope everybody has a joyous holiday with your family members and that you get to decompress and take a little on your mental health and emotional safety and security too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. I think we're pretty close with our negotiations. Both LEA, ESEA, and the rest of the groups. The thing is, I know that 12-15 would be with LEA, is that correct? Hopefully we get some type of agreement, so we don't go into the new year without a contract. And then the new year meaning January. Hopefully that's that close. I know that financial language is okay, I can't talk too much about it, but anyway, hopefully that we're close, and I appreciate your work, Dr. Dorsey, for all the things that you do for negotiation. Thanks, board members, for attending there. And it's an experience. I've been there before several times in the past, and it's good to have that type of experience there. I want to thank the board. This will be my last actually official board meeting for this school year, and as president of this board, I want to thank every board member on this, and Mr. Porter that's not here, for their complete support to me as a board president. It made it so easy. You know, sometimes as I was growing up, I would be very stressful to handle situations like this, especially when I started coaching. But this is a cakewalk because of the support that you get from your board members. They're always pleasant. If we have disagreements, that's fine, because we have to have disagreements. But I appreciate all their help, and again, we'll see you again in December 12th, where we have the organizational meeting. And again, I want to wish everybody, board members and fans and teachers and administrators and any other concerns, a real happy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy it very well. And after Thanksgiving, of course, you have another couple of weeks that you come in here. The restful time would be the Christmas days. And that would be great, because you are ready to come back in January with all good energy to teach again. Thank you very much for your support, teachers. If you did give me some support, doesn't matter. I still fight for my youngsters. The kids are the important people. The staff is the ones that are important. Don't get me wrong, because that's the foundation. You people are mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, of all these kids, because I've had that experience. And there's sometimes when those students do not want to leave your classroom because you're so involved and so pleasant and you care for them. That's the main thing. When you start caring for students and discuss the things the needs that they need to have, it's so important. So again, thanks teachers for doing that, and I appreciate that very much. I have nothing else to say except happy Thanksgiving, and I need to entertain a motion for adjournment.
What about committee reports?
Oh, we do have some. Thank you, Miss Alexander. You told me the last meeting that we had some reports. All right, then we have some committee reports, and that would be.
Do you want me to just do mine first? And then
Let's do yours first.
I'm sorry.
So sorry. The 2x2 committee, we met on the 30th of October. Mr. Khan, Mayor Mikey Singh, former student, Hoppy, and Andrew Keys. The city is informed us of plans for a new hydrogen plant. And Mr. Khan, jump in if I forget something, please. Next to White Slough. We talked about the use of Kofu Field as a possible help with the Tokay situation for baseball, softball fields, but obviously not an option to be used during flooding time. much of the season, unfortunately. The district informed that school sites may be used by the city outside of school hours under the existing facilities use agreement process, and making sure that that takes place. The city is very supportive and will begin investigation of an ordinance to restrict unhoused encampments within the proximity of schools, which it was a great meeting, my first time sitting on a 2x2, so that was awesome. We also had a facilities meeting on 11/3, talking about the North Tokay High School ball field project moving forward. We'll bring possible recommendations to the board for that. Mr. Khan, is that correct? And possibly recommendations on the Lodi High School. Is that going to be coming forward, the turf?
For the field turf?
For the field turf?
Potentially, I believe we'll have the Tokay ball fields before the board on the 12th. We're gonna need a little more time after that for the field
Okay.
turf.
Thank you. And then we reviewed current summer project lists from the 29 sites. So there we go. Did it.
Whoa, thank you,
Sorry.
Ms. Alexander.
I don't have any.
Nothing? No other reports? Wow, okay. Entertain a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn
Second
by
it.
Ms. McFarland, second by Mr. Stroll. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
Just not want to say no.
You didn't break your trigger.
No.